I was saving everyone from my singing voice. But let me just say that again, because who's ever online couldn't hear me, I think. But we started our meditation with a chant that we just started singing, I don't know if it was 8 years ago, I can't remember, but it wasn't always around. And so the words are, and many of you will know, but not all of the words, but how shall I love thee? How shall I seek thee? How shall I serve thee? How shall I worship thee? And then the refrain is, with every breath I breathe. And then, just as a fire can burn a whole forest, burn to the root my desires. And we were coming back from Los Angeles after a pilgrimage once on a bus, and we were chanting much of the way back, as we often do on that pilgrimage. And Biraj, I said, I can sing it, but I don't remember the order of those words. And he said, oh, it's alphabetical. Love, seek, serve, worship, which made it very easy for me. Now, when I would sing it since then, I would be focused on that, alphabetical, love, seek, serve, worship. But today, I realized what a profound chant it is, how deep the words are. It really highlights the main ways that we're taught. And I'm thinking of starting a new sadhaka training and how we start. The first night of every sadhaka training is we talk about the 5 S's, which, I mean, you'll all hear and you'll all know, but I can always only remember 4 of them. But serve, study, satsang, seva are 4 of them. Yeah. The 5th one, what is it? Support, okay. But that's the foundation of our path. That's, when you go and read, after you've read hundreds of articles that Yogananda's written or Swamiji's written, you realize you never read anything that doesn't talk about at least one of these aspects of our path. I mean, certainly love in the heart is always there, prominent, but seva is right with it. As Jyotish said, many people might spend an hour, maybe 2 a day meditating, but so many more hours are spent serving, and yet we haven't learned enough. He started a book years ago. He's probably going to get it finished soon now. Other things sidetracked him. The point is, that chant is so beautiful. And then, even when I prayed today, I was saying, remove all obstacles, all desires, anything that would keep us from knowing me. And then you hear it. Just as a fire can burn a whole forest, which is a pretty remarkable event, it's huge. It's a big thing that happens. And then he says, burn to the root our desires. Just like that, get rid of these desires. Anyway, it's a wonderful chant, and it just hit me. As I said, the tune, the melody is so catchy that you could forget to go deep with it. But thank you for that, Lakshmi. I was not expecting that chant, so it was particularly delightful. Yeah. So what we'll do for the next, we have 2 hours, but if we finish in an hour, we'll finish. We'll just see how far we go. There are people online as well. For those of you online, you have to join the streaming app. It's actually very easy to do. You'll see a way to do that right on the page there. Takes about 3 minutes. I did it all by myself, so it's easy. And then you can type in questions. You can't type in questions if you don't sign on, so please do that. Or you can email Lakshmi, lakshmilapine@gmail.com. So email Lakshmi or sign on and put questions over in the sidebar there. Lakshmi's watching for them. And anybody here, please do not hesitate to ask any question. Every question, it's like the secrets classes that we're having and that we offer here. Every secret is a seed thought. Means you could talk about the whole path with every day of a secret, and we do. When each class, we do that. So same thing with the questions. Just make sure that you feel perfectly comfortable asking anything. There's nothing too simple. There may be some that are too hard. We'll see. But usually, I sit here and I count on them. I'm very aware of them being behind me, answering your questions. So, do we have any questions in the temple?
Good morning.
Good morning.
I have two questions, and the first one, they might be related, but the first one is, can you talk about Om, the melody of love, not Bharat's book, but about chanting Om, about listening for Om, and then the technique if you can. And then the other question has to do with how to pray and why pray and how to listen for the answer.
Om is a very interesting, it's the essence of everything, but it's interesting for us because we chant it so often, we talk about it so often, we sing about it every Sunday. We have the Om song. But to really, and of course, our meditation, we learn an Om technique where we're being taught to listen for that sound, which challenges a lot of people. We were just watching, we're doing a monthly Kriya review here. So we just started with the higher Kriyas, so not everybody's coming, but, and what I've been doing is showing a little, Lakshmi, is that here? Okay, it sounded so close this time. I thought maybe Dhananjaya had come back. Okay, thank you. So we were reviewing second Kriya, and it's not important to talk about it a lot, but it has notoriously been a Kriya that has challenged people. So there's first, second, third, and fourth Kriya. Many people get first Kriya and they practice it. Then they get second Kriya, then they get third and fourth. And what many people wind up doing is practicing first and then third and fourth, because they're easy. Second Kriya requires a kind of patience. That's all I'll say, because obviously I can't talk about it here. It's not even important right now. But we just watched last Sunday night when we did our review, a short little part of a talk that Swami Jaya gave recently up at the village. He didn't give it at the village, but he gave it on the Kriya, to the Kriya course that's offered through Deva Lila. I hope many of you have joined that course. You pay a one-time fee if you're a Kriyaban of, I think it's $99, and you get access to everything. So an important thing to do. He offered a course there for higher Kriyabans, and he started talking about just like the Om technique challenges people. He was comparing them because that's the way we move in our society. We get instant results, instantaneous these days, to the most complex things. No matter what it is, you just go into some search engine and We just move like that. But the Om technique is not like that. It takes, usually, though some people tell me they've been hearing Om all their life, or they hear it the first time, and I would never doubt that. But to have that experience of Om takes usually a lot of patience and a lot of ability to sit quietly in a receptive mode. Because when we're receptive enough, we'll hear it, because it's always here. It's not like it's being created for us. Om is literally the sound of the vibration that's created everything in the universe. And it's the sound of the vibration of the heart opening that we call love. This is why Bharat could call his book that, The Melody of Love. It is a melody. And the reason that we want to practice trying to hear Om, whether we ever do or not, and it's very important to let go of that. Is that it? Is that it? Am I hearing it yet? You know, I've often told people, for some reason I used to say this a lot when I taught beginning meditation, which I haven't done for many years now. But when you're a medical student and they're teaching you how to feel somebody's liver, how to search for the liver, and you don't feel it, and you don't feel it, and you don't feel it, and soon you start thinking you're going to kill somebody one day because their liver will have a problem and you won't know how to feel it. And you're just working, until they finally let you feel somebody's liver that's enlarged, and you feel it immediately. And then you realize that when it's important, if you've developed the technique, everybody's had their abdomen palpated, I assume, and they're checking to see if your liver's enlarged or if your spleen's enlarged and other things. But but you think you won't hear it, but you have the technique, and when the moment's right, it's just right there, because it's always there. And it's important for us to practice tuning into it, because we are trying, anybody who's on a sincere spiritual path, but certainly this path, we're making every effort we can to tune into the most subtle energy. So it's important to do that. And I think all of you have heard me say that Sai Ganesh gave me a gift years ago now of a little, it's this big, it's some little recorder, and he put something in there. I have to ask him what you call it. Some of you know, Paul, you must know. Put a little thing in there onto which he had recorded in a loop Swamiji constantly chanting Om, like we hear every Sunday before we start our service, right? We always hear Swamiji. That's what's playing when we walk in. Sai Ganesh gave me this little machine, and it's on there. It would play every second for the rest of my life. So I put it in a corner on a bookshelf in my home, and it's so quiet that sometimes you don't even hear it, but it's constantly putting out that vibration, constantly. And when I walk into Iris, the house that I live in, no matter what is happening, instantly, I feel that calm, I feel uplifted, because that vibration is there. And I'll just tell you one cute story. Yesterday I was meeting with a couple in Iris, and it was a very serious, sincere, deep conversation. This is a couple that's been married for 45 years at least, and suddenly all of that is in question. And they're two beautiful souls, and so it's that level of talking about what's going on. Anyway, at some point, we had a breakthrough in the communication. It was lovely. And suddenly, the woman says to me, "Do you hear that?" She said, "I hear Om," which had been, it had been playing the whole time, of course. I mean, it was on, it's always on. And she said, "Do you know that there's Om coming in here?" And I didn't understand at first. I said, "Yeah, I put it there." And she said, "That Om is coming through you." I mean, it was a very sweet moment. But when they got quiet and still enough and calm enough, they heard it and felt it. It's a very good thing to do. Recently, we've been importing them from Delhi. Delhi now makes a similar thing. They're bigger. They're not nearly as sweet, I think, as the one that Sai Ganesh made for me. But still, you could put it anywhere. And I mean, it doesn't need to be sitting out. And you just constantly have that vibration. So it's important because it's taking us back to the source that is that vibration. That is the source of all that is. That is what we call God. So it's essential that we not get impatient, that we not get lazy. I'm taking a shortcut, but really I'm just practicing tuning in by having it in the house all the time. But it's been a wonderful practice. And then your second question was, why pray? You asked. Yeah. We pray because we need to remember to offer everything to God. Because the Sunday service that answers that question is, well, Swamiji does 3 weeks in a row about prayer. Some of you may remember. It's the only, I mean, of course, the whole topic of the divine, excuse me, divine energy is in every reading, but it's the only specific topic where he approaches it 3 times like that, 3 weeks in a row. And one of them he calls, "Why tell God anything when he already knows everything?" Because it's important for us. God already knows, and he says in there, and there's readings, and Master says, let me just think of where I just read this, that it's so perfect. The where won't come, nor the exact words, but it's everywhere. He knows what we're thinking before we think it, because we are him. We are that vibration, but we forget him. That's what happens. All of us, whether we do it a lot or we do it occasionally, we forget God. So prayer is so meaningful to us, that constant conversation, a discourse, to practice talking to God. There are many people who tell me about issues that they've been having. I guess we all talk to each other that way. I just happen to be in a position in this life where people would come and talk to me. And I'll say to them, "Why didn't you come sooner?" And very often people say, "Well, I know the answer." And they probably do. They probably already know what the answer is. But if they could be practicing it, they wouldn't be in the situation they're in. So we talk to each other, we pray, we do satsang. Why do we do this? I often say to people, you'll not hear anything new here. Nothing new. We've all already heard everything. But it's that constant repetition of truth. It's that constant raising our energy. When you sit to talk to God, you sit, you pray, which is a form of talking to God. Then we usually get ready to listen for answers, which is what meditation is, of course. But some of us, at least if we're Jewish, I'm looking to see if anybody else here is Jewish, but none of you are. We talk to God a lot, and because that's what we do. And it's a cultural thing, and I know we're not the only culture that talks a lot, but we do. And I just often I can spend the first 20 to 30 minutes of my practice just talking to God. And I used to write it all the time. And I've mentioned this. I had books and books and books of prayers. And Sant Keshava Das, who was the teacher that you've all heard me talk about, who I spent many years with in this Ananda sandwich. I started at Ananda. Then I went off to India, basically, with Sant Keshava Das for years. I didn't really move there, but spent a lot of time there with him, and then came back to Ananda. It's just all been perfect. It was divinely orchestrated, I'm certain. But whenever an important murti was being installed or being built, we would go to India. This is the truth. And this is in days of not lightweight roller type suitcases. This is like schlep your suitcases filled with books of prayers. And he would bury them in the ground beneath these very sacred sites. That was what he wanted as the foundation for these important places. He wanted our discourse with God. It's very powerful when you think about it. That, again, as the foundation of everything, so our discussions with God are very meaningful. And they cannot be too simple. They can't. And, we speak of it very sweetly. Master will tell us, he does in many places, God loves it when you talk to him about everything. And Swamiji says he loves the way little children speak. But we're all his little children. So the message there is, don't forget about me. And don't forget that if you ask, if you pray, if you talk to me, I will listen. I was telling somebody this. I don't usually share these things, but I was in an experience recently, I'll just leave it like that, where I told Master that I would not come out of it, this particular moment, in a meditation, actually, but it wasn't, anyway, it doesn't matter, it was like that. I said, I'm not moving until you show me your eyes. And I just sat there longer than the particular group I was with maybe thought I should. If anybody was watching, they're thinking, what is she doing? What is she doing? I just kept saying to him, show me that you're here. Show me that it's you guiding me, that it's not me. And then, I'm looking for the picture, but it's not here. There's a picture of Master where his hair looks a little finer. It's coming down. It doesn't have a name. His eyes are so intense in that picture. And I've heard many people say, and I feel it too, I swear he follows me around the room with them. I swear I see them move in the picture, in Iris when I stare at that picture. It's a very powerful picture. And those eyes finally came to me. I said, okay. It's like our prayer and Master saying, how much do you want me? How much do you want me? And it's the more sincere, focused, and intense the prayers are. Like, pray like your life depends on it, because it does. It does depend on it. It does. What else does it depend on, if not that connection with God? You know, it was so interesting in this experience I had yesterday. I was mentioning before some of you came in that I was meeting with a couple yesterday who've been together at least 45 years, and now there's ripples. It started with a little tsunami, but it's calmed down to ripples about weather. And in the sweetest way, I mean, sincerely, not lacking the love, but really questioning, are we meant to stay married now? For some right reasons, but it always comes up in the human mind. Is this real? Is this really about God and my journey to God? Or am I restless? Or am I angry? Or am I depressed? There's a lot of emotions that can feel like God's calling us, but it can be very confusing. And it was a beautiful couple of hours, but in the end, I kept saying, this is a very unsatisfactory answer for you, because you came here hoping that I could give you exact direction, and I'm not going to do that. I wouldn't say to you, stay or go, but I will say, each of you, find a way. Do you need to go away for a month and sit in seclusion, not together, alone, and talk to God? Really do nothing for a month, but talk to God. And at some point, this I know for sure, He will answer. Because that's what He wants us to talk to Him. He wants us, and we speak like I thou, as Krishna even tells us we should. There really is no I thou, but when we're praying and when we're speaking to God, we're relating to our highest and true self that's beyond all emotion, that place where we've purified the heart, where we've brought all of that energy in. Because as long as there's emotion, we cannot get there. It's impossible. We just can't find God. They're mutually exclusive. So we have to find a way to calm the heart, is the way Sri Yukteswar and others speak about it. But that's what we're doing. Calming the heart means what we're all trying to do with Kriya. It means drawing all of that energy in and drawing it up through the heart, not letting it go out with feeling. And that's why we need to get very quiet and make great effort, because in very subtle ways, and this too is important just to hear, if we had perfected any of this, we wouldn't be here. So we're all in this same boat. And the boat is called the human condition and life. But I had another experience recently. I think I've mentioned this somewhere, where somebody came to me and really basically told me that they were absolutely certain that they had just found the love of their life. And I knew pretty much right away, just because of how they were presenting it to me, that we might not be able to be sure about that. But of course, I didn't say it right away. But they were telling me that it was coming through intuition. So they knew it to be true because they were getting it intuitively. But they also admitted through a lengthy conversation that there was a lot of emotion, I have to get into it. It's very important. Right now, I have to do it. I'm certain about this. And then I just had to say, maybe you're being called in that direction. I wouldn't know. I mean, maybe. But you cannot be receiving intuition when you're this emotional. You can't, because they have to go through the same receiving station, which is the heart. And emotions take the heart out. That's what they do, every emotion, all the time. Intuition is speaking directly to the heart from above. The energy has to only be going that way. It can't reach out here and grab you. So as long as we're too invested in something in that way emotionally, I don't mean invested in being a dear friend to somebody or a perfect partner or loving God from a high place. That we call energy, we call effort, we call will. That's different. Those are spiritual qualities. But when there's emotion there, sometimes very hard to see it, you cannot trust whatever it is that we would call intuition. And it's very, very tricky. And in this case, though the person was willing to take some advice and put it down for a couple of months, they were willing to hear that. Let it go and see if it's perfect, because there were other issues that aren't important to talk about. And by the end of a couple of months, the person that they thought God was telling them to be together with had found the next love of their life, the other person. So it didn't last very long. You know, it's just, but in a way, even though I'm not making fun of anybody, because if it were simple, we wouldn't even have a question here. But it's not easy. It's just, the spiritual path just isn't, because the ego, it's, as I always say, it's just so darn good at what it does. Delusion is so subtle. So, I mean, what can we do? That's why we pray. That's why we spend as much time as we can praying. That's why just going back to your first question, really, it's why we listen for Om all the time, because we are trying to tune into that highest source of wisdom, that highest source of intelligence that's beyond anything our own minds could ever tell us. So, yeah. Okay. So for those of you who walked in, oh good, we have a question. Please don't be shy about asking questions. And Lakshmi, you let me know if there's any from outside. Okay.
I don't know how to ask the question, but I'll talk about it, that I'm sure the question. It's about excitement. And how do you life happens, karma happens, years pass by, and we all have a lot of turmoil, probably. Most of us, once you pass certain age, and some people very young age. So it gets a point, then you find the path, then your emotions start getting into balance. You start finding harmony, peace. I'm talking about me, something that I was craving for, but I couldn't find it. But it was something then that starts happening. It feels very good. But then you start getting like, to confuse this from being passive in life. Yeah. Don't confuse this by not taking action in life. Don't confuse this for not excitement about doing something. And sometimes it's there, like I want to keep feeling the excitement that I had in life before, because I know and I want to do a lot of things in life too. Now it has a purpose.
Yeah.
Of the things that I want to do in life. I want to do many things with EFL. I want to do many things as a service master, Ananda. But I don't want to be afraid of what had happened. I
Yeah.
want to keep that purity of when you don't know anything and you bump yourself millions of times in the wall, but you did it with so much energy and purity. And so how can you take away the nonsense, the turmoil that was before, but don't confuse it with fear. Don't confuse it with passive. Don't confuse it. And then I think in Swami, till he was dying, and he was like, no, I have to finish this book and I have to write the book. I want to have that.
Yeah.
Not, yeah.
We had a wedding at Ananda. Trying to remember, I'm pretty sure could have been Stephen and Rita's wedding. But the family came up to us afterwards. Asha frequently relates this, but several of us were there. And they looked at us and they said, you have so much fun, and you're not even drinking any alcohol. It's an interesting but related, So I think it's not even as much of a question as noticing, I think, two parts. Number one, we crave, because we're human, every once in a while we crave what we used to call excitement. And it was exciting to be young and to be growing up. And even if I'm not directly, even if this wasn't part of your question, let me go. It feels like it is, or like that excitement that we felt even before we knew the path. How do we bring it and use it on the path? Is that your point? Yeah. So you've had this opportunity, I know you have, I know we all have, of getting so engaged. I think Rajasi Day is a perfect example of it. Rajasi Day, we don't do them every year here. We should. They're great, and we're smaller. But in the old days at the village, it was a huge thing. It's part of how many things that we just see and take for granted, Master's Market, other things, how they were built, how they happened. You get the whole village out, or the whole of Ananda, Palo Alto, and everybody pitches in. Some of us might be in the kitchen cooking, while somebody else is on a 20-foot ladder risking their life doing whatever they're doing. People are doing everything they can. The temple was built that way, the temple of light. And boy, was there excitement and enthusiasm. We could use the word enthusiasm, energy, because the quality's a little different. Excitement's risky, and I think, yeah, enthusiasm is, and not for word picking, but because the energy is really different. But I think that the spiritual path, obviously it's hard at times. For many reasons, it's hard. It demands something other of us than what we were doing before we got conscious about finding it. And change is difficult. That's simply true. Even though we have moments of like, boy, I'll never miss where I was. I think I'll never miss most of what my life was before I found the path. That's probably true. But being on the path with the effort that's needed, conscious effort, because now we're not 18, we're not just throwing ourselves into something mindlessly. Not that an 18-year-old can't be serious on the path, but I'm using it as an example because most 18-year-olds aren't, but they could be. but to bring all of that exact amount of single-pointed energy. Because I think that's where the joy comes from. It's not the what we're doing, but like you said, throwing yourself into things. I think you used those words, didn't you? Yeah, it's, or not close. I think that's where the thrill, because the spiritual path can be thrilling. If you ever saw Swamiji when he finished a book or he got a chapter right or music for a song came through, he was ecstatic, literally. And it was infectious and it was joyful. It wasn't like you had to be serious and calm and studious. No, I mean, that's one of the great things, one of many, but one of the things about Swami Kriyananda, he taught us that the path can look just like that. In fact, it should. It's only truly divine when we feel that kind of enthusiasm and joy and the heart just bursts open. But if I'm misunderstanding your question or what you're looking at, just ask again when I'm done. But having some realization, I don't even want to use the word concern, but some realization that when we get out there and we're throwing ourselves into something, it's a slippery slope because it can easily degrade into the human side of it, if rather, and away from the divine aspect of it that's pulling us. So we have to bring all of the enthusiasm, all of the energy, all of the joy, but we need to keep coming back and grounding ourselves in our practices, in satsang, in moments like this, where we're asking these important questions or sharing important thoughts. Now, did I get anywhere near speaking?
Like I said before, I don't know what is the question, but it's watch out, watch out.
Yeah.
Don't keep saying yes to life. Don't get comfortable. Even by being in the path, it has a feeling of being very safe.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm guarded now. I'm safe now. I don't have to.
Yeah.
But having the feeling inside of like, no, you still have a lot of things to do, so you better take a step out.
Yeah.
Maybe you needed it. Maybe you needed that comfort, that feeling safe, that feeling guarded. But knock, knock.
Complacency is one aspect of the devil on the spiritual path. And that's the point that you're making. If we become, I feel it's what happened during the pandemic to many devotees. They got complacent. First I was saying we got lazy, but that's a really harsh word, so I changed it to complacent, which is probably a little nicer than what happened to most people, actually. So they felt, many disciples, it's just as good being at home watching from online. Just as good, hey, why not? I can stay in my pajamas, I can have coffee. There is something nice about that, to be honest, but it's those moments where if we get too complacent, if we get too relaxed, too safe, that is something, see, it's a funny thing because if we look at Swamiji, which we would all like to do, or any of the leaders, any of the people, even our friends who we respect and admire and would like to emulate in certain ways on the path, they do feel safe. They do feel all of that, but their energy and enthusiasm doesn't drop. And that is, this is this is a practice. It's our practice on the spiritual path. It just is, until we get to that place where every once in a while, and I mean mostly rarely, but the thought will come, God, it'd be so good to take a week off and just sit and do nothing. That's what I say to myself. Do you know how long that would last? Seriously. Maybe an hour. Not that I can't be in seclusion. I love seclusion, but I'm not doing nothing. There's always that upward, inward, onward energy. It's just, I think when I'm exhausted, and what I really need, and I'm speaking because this is true, is a 10-minute nap or something. You just get to the place where you realize what we call or think is safe. It's not safe at all. It's, again, when I said complacency, it's an aspect of the devil. We cannot go there because that aspect of God that is Satan and is egoic is so powerful with us. We are never safely free of it. That's why we always say we're not free until we're free. You can't feel that, like, just relax for a while, the way we're talking about it. I'll just take a vacation, and I don't need to meditate when I'm on vacation. Many people here have heard me. They know I have a very, very dear friend. She's a sister. She's not a friend. We've been together since we're 4.5 years old. And she lives in Oakland now. We've always sort of been in the same place. And I really love this soul. But we've just gone in very different directions. For years, maybe 15 at least, I would go with her and another woman, and we would go down to parts of Mexico, and we just kept moving further and further and further south as Europe and the US was taking over parts of Mexico, like fly into Cancun and then drive south. Used to be you could drive a half hour and you knew you were in Mexico. Then you had to drive 45 minutes, then an hour, because mostly the Europeans were coming in and just taking it over. And so we had a lot of fun doing that. We were always sort of like the first real white people there for a couple of years. Then everybody else came, we would leave. And it was lovely. And then one year, I would every morning get up before them, go out onto the beach, out of our cabana, casita, whatever we were staying in, and I would energize and meditate. 2 hours later, I would come back. They would just be waking up. We would go have breakfast. Same thing after dinner. But then I started realizing that wasn't okay. I was always in their energy, except for those 3 hours. 2 hours in the morning, 1 hour at night. There was always alcohol. I actually don't mind if people drink. I don't think drinking is horrible. It's just you can't drink and then meditate. You can't. So that's a decision that gets made for us. But I don't think for most people to have a drink a few times a week. These people are not alcoholic. But the whole area was in alcohol, and then loud music, and then dancing. And, that's what was happening on the beach. And so finally I just said to them, I can't be here with you anymore. They were very upset with me. I ruined the whole, it was an annual event, and it was not going to be the same without me. So I ruined it. But I realized I couldn't keep putting in as much as I needed to put in to transcend all of that to be where I wanted to be. I had to let it go. It's a constant, I think I've hurt a lot of people in this life, my own family, some very dear friends, although I've tried to do it lovingly and gently. I feel it lovingly. I really love you, and I can't be with you anymore. And some of them, not just on vacation, but I have nothing to say to you, and you have nothing to say to me that's of any import. I have to come down to meet you where you are. And just in many instances have decided no, because it's so slippery. I mean, we'll all work it out our own way. But I think coming to things like this is what I feel. And I just had the thought, and I'm going to say it out loud, though I might get myself into trouble. But we're starting a new sadhaka training next month. People who are saying they want to be part of the community, they want to keep learning, why are they not here? I was asking myself that. And I'm going to write a letter and ask them, why are you not in classes right now? Why are you not taking advantage of wisdom between all of us being shared? Not from me, but from them with all of us. What do you think sadhaka training's about? Do you know? And I don't even remember who all the people are, but when it came to me, when we started today, there were 3 people because we had this mix-up of schedules, and several more have joined, and I never know, and I never ask who's online. Maybe every future sadhaka is online, but I doubt it. There's this forgetfulness that the spiritual path takes effort. And if everybody who's not here, I know of one who's working, maybe 2, maybe there's some good reasons, but mostly they're just not paying attention, and that's dangerous. So I feel like just to say to you, because I see you 2 everywhere all the time, and when you're not here, you're at the village. I mean, and of course many of us are like that, and we need to be like that. And it's no different, I promise you, if you happen to be sitting here teaching, or you're there asking questions. It doesn't matter. We're all here because we need to be here. And we know it for just that reason. We're fighting complacency. So it's a very good point.
Thank you, Shanti. My question is very related, I think, to what you were talking about. It is about, like, before you came to the path and after, there are, like, as she was telling, there are some probably very good parts of you which already kind of were uplifting you. And how do you pick those up in the highest way, that they are helpful on the path and not become slippery slope? Let me give an example. One of them is, I'm just talking about personally, my relationship with animals and how much I feel love for them, and my relationship with my family and how much love I feel. And also there is this level of comfort and safety that you can feel with both family, friends, and animals. I know that quality probably helped me be here, but I know that quality needs to also transcend. And that's the question. How can we still be so open-hearted and so loving, but not in a human way, but in a divine way?
Yeah. This is why there's 2 things that Master said. You ask yourself, why do we all know certain things that he said? There's certain things because they're such clear kernels of truth, so we know them. So when Master says every situation is neutral, it's how you react to it that makes it feel good or bad. In this case, you're not even talking about feeling, but it's the same thing. Every situation is neutral. I love my brothers. I feel great love for them. And they both know it, but I rarely see them, rarely. And I can say these things because I guarantee you they are never going to watch this recording. Hence, I rarely see them. But in October, I went back east. My youngest brother is now 70, just to put this in perspective. These are not kids we're talking about. His youngest daughter got married, and I went to the wedding, and I was either writing with Lakshmi or speaking with her at one point, and I said to her, it's all perfect. I came here to bring love here. I came to bring just uplifted, wonderful energy. I wanted them to have this moment and feel Shanti cares. And I said, that's all working. That's happening. But I said, I absolutely feel like I have landed on a different planet. And I did. The way they dress, the way they speak, the food they eat, the way they relate to each other. I mean, the niece who got married, I had gone down to the lobby of the hotel. It was a big ski resort, actually. Early the next morning, I was awake, and I was just going to sit down there quietly and read. And she and a lot of her friends came, and she's very, I don't know what the word is. She's communicating like I'm communicating with me last night. She was found blacked out in a hallway. She doesn't remember her wedding. Her wedding was the day before. This is, it was some holiday anyway, there's a huge bar there. I'm blocking on what it was. But the bar is so famous in the area, you have to try and get passes to it well in advance. So somebody got a whole slew of passes for all of these. These are not kids. These are 30-year-olds, 35, in and around that age. And she didn't even care. She wasn't embarrassed to be saying in her wedding gown, she was found, passed out, blacked out. She doesn't know how she got there. She has no idea if her husband was ever with her throughout the whole evening. They just got married the afternoon before. And it was just, ha. And then my nephew, her half-brother, comes down and he goes, okay, who needs a Bloody Mary? And he had brought, you know what a Bloody Mary is, everybody, anyways. He brought this whole cooler with him up to the ski resort where we were that had all of the fixins for a Bloody Mary. Here they are. I mean, I was there now I never lived like that anyway, but that just blew my mind. When I say I felt like I woke up on a different planet, but I really felt a lot of love for all of them. So it's not the situation, it's the attachment. The other thing that Master says in the AY, and that wonderful story in that chapter about two young boys going to Vrindavan, I think it is, right? And he says about his friend who decides, I'm not going on with you, because Master's saying, hey, we could still sneak away and keep going. And he says, no way. And then Master says, he was missing the familial warmth. What a phrase. What a beautiful phrase. And I will tell you, I wrestle with that with my dog, Max. I do. Whenever I'm going away now, it's not Barry that I'm thinking, what? I can take care of Barry, get him food, get him all the things he needs. But I have no way of saying to Max, now every day when I leave, every day, and he's like this, those of you who've seen Max, he's very, very cute, but he has a very sad face. It's just his face. But when you, huh? Yeah, I don't know if it's expressive or, I want to tell myself, no, it's just physically how he was born, because I don't want to think he's sad. But he looks very sad when I'm leaving. And every day, sometimes 3 times a day, I say, Maxie, what do I say to you all the time, honey? I'm always coming back to you. I'll always, now of course I know sometime I might not come back, but I tell him anyway, it's too hard. It's hard enough to explain what I'm trying to explain to the dog. Never mind, unless I drop dead or I have an accident, But in a way, it is, I'm joking about it, but it's a struggle, leaving that little soul. That soul, I shouldn't even call it, just happens to be in a dog, but we're relating soul to soul. But it's familial warmth, Max is no more my responsibility than Barry is, really. It really is all in God's hands. It gets very hard when it's our parents that we love, or a partner, or children. Very hard to remember. You are not in charge of them. You actually never were, though. For a few years, you needed to make sure they didn't run out into traffic, right? Or burn themselves on a stove. But at a certain age, you've given them, let me just think of where, because this couple that I was talking to, he's saying to me, she says, I need to spend more time with the kids. I feel the kids are already in their 30s. Every bit of influence I could, they don't want to hear what I have to say, deeply devoted soul. And it's an interesting thing. What is the Dharma around children when they're now in their 30s or 40s? What is it really? We're not talking about, do you love them and do you want to give to them and would you be there if they needed your help? We're saying, how attached to them are you? We're saying, how emotional are you about it? Because you don't get a free pass because they came in as your children. You remember what Master said about being an infant? I just read it last week for some reason. When he talks about it, he says, just in essence, who are these people that think that I can't understand them? I could speak to them in 8 languages right now, he says, if I just had the ability, but I'm stuck in this body and the indignity of not being able to walk to the bathroom. This is a soul who's saying it. So we get confused, and we get most confused about our children. Really, we do. And then we excuse ourselves, and we step over these lines. But make no mistake about it, it's still stepping over a line. We're not in charge of their lives. At a certain point, they can tune into their own intuition, their own guidance. They have to. Now, it's complicated with animals and children. I always said I would never be a pediatrician and I would never be a vet because you can't speak, you can't explain things. And from this side, that's very hard, But it's all about familial warmth. It's all about mistaking that feeling for being something higher and other than what it is. And we can love these people. And I guarantee you, if you spoke to my friend who I quit going to Mexico and then Guatemala, as I said, we just kept going wherever we went. Or if you speak to my brothers, or even Barry, who I'm not with all that much, really. I'm away from him a lot. They would all tell you that they really feel my love. They would all say, we miss her. We wish we could be with her more. Every one of them. which always surprises me, but it's true. They actually want to be with me more. But they do feel my love, just not in the form that they necessarily wanted. And that I had to let go of because it was holding me back. Too many old friends, too much family, too many needs, connections. This one needs that, this one needs that, this one. And it's just, my soul is longing to be more free than that. It is. And once we're sure that that's also just not laziness, bad attitude, lacking a sense of responsibility, then we have to let it go. We will let it go. May not be in this life, but purifying that love, transforming that love, and then knowing the truth is the love that you feel for them is a purer, a higher form of love than what it was, but you'll never be able to tell them that. That's hard, but true. Does that answer?
How do we do that? It is a constant, the familial warmth of the relationship is there, and my feeling of the need to feel higher love and radiate that love into that familial relationship need to happen. But there is a gap. So what are the steps for that gap?
This is hard, and this is very hard for you, Pooja. So this is a general answer, but I know you. Pooja has she probably has 2 wonderful sons, but I don't know them. But Shom, who's the younger, 25-year-old, is now in his 3rd year of medical school. So I've been able to be involved with him because Mom wanted him to hear my words on medicine and choosing a school. Now it's choosing a specialty. Now it's, is he studying too hard, too much? She loves them very, very much, but...
Mostly my problem is they are a little bit more dumb than I want to see them.
Did you say dumb? That means not on your spiritual path, that's what that means. Yeah. This is very, very complicated for people. And I'm telling you, this question comes up every single Q&A. It would probably come up again if it goes longer. How can I help, and really we could say make, because mostly we really want to make them, the person that I love, my partner, my children, my parents, my siblings, my friends, see this truth. We know it's true, no doubt in our lives, but there is only one answer to this question, and that is live the teachings. Just live them. And if your magnetism gets strong enough, those who are meant to move onto this path in this life, which may not be our children or our parents, or we don't know. It's not for everybody. 1 in 1,000, Krishna said. And that's for all teachers, all comers. I was thinking about this last night because I quote that so often. If it's 1 in 1,000 will seek me in general, what about seeking Yogananda? My God, must be 1 in 1,000,000. Really, if you think about it. Maybe because he was an avatar, it's still 1 in 1,000. I don't know the celestial math here, but I feel most people in this world, in this life right now, not because now is any particular moment, but in this yuga, in any moment, they're not interested. And we cannot force them. We can live the teachings. So when I made a joke before about how people in my life want to be around me more, it's no joke. They do. Even people who never say a meaningful, interactive word to me, they want to be near me. Why is it? It's not me. They just don't see all the ways that I'm a really serious pain in the rear end. I can be a very difficult person. But what they're feeling is God's love. That's what they feel, that refined vibration. And they don't know it, but it's like, I want to be near that. I often tell people who are new, I say, new people tend to sit in the back of the church because I don't know if they feel they can make a quick getaway or that they don't want to be caught doing the wrong thing. I mean, I'm just not sure. But when I speak to people, I say, sit up towards the front and watch the faces of the people who have been here longer. Feel that energy. They don't even know what energy is. But if they listen, many times I've been told, wow, because that's what happens. That's where the magnetism is. It's not in the demanding words that we speak or the forceful, but you have to see this. Don't you see? Come on, come one time with me. That's why I didn't invite Shom yesterday. I almost did, but then I was afraid he would feel because it was me, he would have to come, and I didn't want to put him in that position, but we just have to live in this vibration. And if we live in this vibration, we can be completely sure that if there's anybody who comes into our aura who's meant to be here, it's magnetism. It's magnetic. Magnetism is real, right? It's a physical law. If all of their protons and neutrons and electrons are aligned properly in this life, no joke, by the way, they won't be able to resist. Look, we couldn't resist. I had to go home and tell my husband that this guy who's been dead for decades just came and talked to me. I had to say, you won't believe this, but that guy who started that place, he just came and talked to me. It's the truth. And when Barry number one, when he said to me, because remember, Master told me to go to medical school right away. Never mind that, go to an Ivy League medical school. And I went home and I said, you won't believe this. Barry said to me, what are you going to do? I said, I'm going to medical school. Just like that, in the space of 30 minutes, you all have your story. But when it's right, that's it. And if it's wrong, that's why Swamiji, the night that the example of a magnetized bar of energy came to him, we assume it was just always there. But he had been thinking, how am I going to share the idea of energy and magnetism? Because it's everything on the path. If you don't get that, you can't be on a path, this path. It's impossible, any path. But when Swamiji had that idea, and he said, and he was so excited, he writes about in the path, he said, I finally had found exactly how to share what's happening on the path by talking to people about that which everybody knows, a magnetized bar of steel, as opposed to one that's not. But when you try and I assume almost everybody in this room did some of these experiments, you try and put a positive end with a positive end. No, they go flying out of your hand. Same thing, you cannot make it work. But when it's right, when it's the positive end of one pole with the negative end of the other pole, you can't get them apart if the magnetism is strong enough. So we are living our lives in such a way. This is our responsibility, and that's Master's word, not mine. I always thought it, but I would never say it out loud till I found it in some of his writings. Then I could quote it. Those of us who've been drawn onto this path have a God-given responsibility to live in certain ways, to behave in certain ways, to live these teachings. And if we do that, then anybody who gets it within that magnetic field will feel it. And in so many ways that feel crazy, they will not be able to resist it. I know you have a comment, Esther, but I'm going to share one more story. Many of you have heard the beginning of this, and I shared it in our secrets class this week. The story about the person who said, I didn't meet them, but this story is in Ananda, and it's written. I mean, it happened, one of the ministers heard it. Could have been Anandi. Somebody was on that show. I don't remember the name of it. But you say, I'll take C1, and C1 flips over, and there's a picture of an orange. And then you try and match it with another picture of an orange, but it doesn't match, so they both close. But then 10 minutes later, you find another orange, and then you have to think, where was the first orange? Because if you get the oranges together, not usually oranges, but you'll win something. You start making points. Somebody said when they chose, the category must have been, I'll take religion too, or something like that. It was the picture of the cover of the AY. And they knew in that instant that they had to find that person on the cover of AY. Then I was sharing this about a year ago in a class, and somebody who's not part of Ananda, and they didn't keep coming back, not because of that class, but they said, that was my cousin. That was my cousin. I mean, what are the odds of that? Who saw that AY? Now, so you look, well, what happened to Swamiji? He saw the cover of a book. Psh, whole life, right? That person on that show. Is that Jeopardy? Yes. Jeopardy. Saw that show, Jeopardy. That's it. I mean, it's just... Anyway. Not an easy answer, but the truth.
My comment was, I leave Master in charge when I leave home. Sometimes I have to come, and I know I have to come. And sometimes, like today, I have my kids in bed, and they're going to wake up and nobody's there. And I say, okay, I leave. You are in charge. Can you be in charge? And I can hear his answer. I can say, you go, I'm in charge.
Yeah.
But it's also a reminder of faith, of who is in charge.
Yeah, that's a great sharing, because even in the remembering to tell him you're in charge, so much shifts and happens that draws him there.
You said it. We're not in charge of the kids. They have their own karma, they have their own things. So unless that you step on the side, and that doesn't mean that you don't have the feelings for them. And it did bring me back to where Master, his mom died. Yeah. He didn't stop having strong, I think Sandala was saying, that means that we have to stop feeling. Is that where we need to remove ourselves? I don't think we ever remove from that.
No, I agree.
Is to remove from the attachment of who is in control, who is in charge of your life.
That's the point. I mean, a mother's love, people who haven't had it, you can see it's harder to make it through this life if you haven't had a loving mom like that. But the attachment to feeling that we're in charge and we'll run their life, that's always it's where we trip up. So, Paul, what were you going to say?
Just quick comment on love and magnetism. From personal experience, I find, and it's embedded in your stories, Shanti, love can be very selfish. I think the way most people understand love and what you're talking about transcending.
Paul,
it,
keep
no?
the, keep,
Oh, yeah,
just because I
transcending.
can't hear you. Yeah.
Yes, sorry. Transcending the way most people understand love. No, in my case, it's my mother that lives 9,000 miles away.
Yeah.
I'm an only child, and she feels she lacks my love in particular. No?
Mm.
And over the years, she's made thousands of comments demanding that love. And for many years, I felt like a terrible person for not being unable to provide it in the way she wanted. And it took me many years to eventually feel comfortable with it, understand that it was a selfish kind of love. It was a demanded love in her way, and in a very Spanish way. You know, you're never here for lunch with the kids on Sundays, you know, because you can't be. But that's what all her friends did, and so she, in a way, she felt she couldn't have what her friends had.
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
the point is, magnetism, what is that, and how does that come in play here? After a while, and I will say, after also starting with Ananda, I've come to terms with that. I feel comfortable with that. And like you, Shanti, you've let your friends know that even though you don't go to Mexico, you still love them very much. And so that's I have been able to accomplish that with my mother. And it started, but the point is that it started with me. And that's the magnetism part.
Yeah.
Once I felt comfortable, I don't know how, but somehow that got transmitted 9,000 miles away. And she no longer does that. She no longer demands that. She knows that I love her. I've been able to express it directly. Esther knows this. Anyway, we don't need to go there, but I was unable to express that before. I've been able to express it now. And it is when I was comfortable with it,
Yeah.
that she stopped demanding love on her terms.
Yeah.
And she accepted them as I was able to give it to her. No? Yeah.
That's just very meaningful, and always the way it is. It's almost inexplicable, isn't it? You get comfortable, she's there. I've had that experience with Barry. I've shared it here a lot, so I won't. But in moments where I've had huge revelations about being judgmental about him, or just whatever, I'm having trouble thinking. Mostly it's that, wanting him to be different. When I could really stop at various stages, he changed. No discussion, no nothing. It was just, I shifted where I was, what I was putting out, what I was willing to be near, whatever it is. And without a discussion, huge change can happen. But it's very hard because we have to be able to live with ourselves that we're not giving these people that we genuinely love what they want, what they think they need. And that is really hard. If you just have to be at such peace with yourself around it. But we get there. Lakshmi? Go ahead. Yeah, I was done. Thank you, Paul. Let me just say that. Thank you. That is a very, very, because it is about magnetism, and it's about, it really is about, you know, these things are all intertwined. You cannot increase your magnetism until you calm your heart. You know, and so we calm our heart, we get clarity, our magnetism increases. We're sitting in truth. And then, but sometimes the people don't change. Sometimes they might just complain forever. Can we be with that? It's an interesting. But thank you, very, very important point. Yeah, Lakshmi.
I raised my hand because that speaks to, we have two questions from online and what you're speaking to. I just wanted to pose this. You may not have more to elaborate because what you said.
Hold on for 1 minute. It's because it's hard to hear you. Let me let Letty close the door. Okay.
I can turn it up in the room. Is that
Good.
better?
Yeah.
Okay. What you were just speaking to speaks very closely to this question, so I just wanted to pose it in case you have more to elaborate. So the question is, how can I remain calm and loving when the person in close proximity, a family member, insists on insulting me and questioning my spiritual beliefs?
First, I would say that's very difficult. I think you can turn me down. Too much of me. Okay. It is, I just want to acknowledge how hard that is when people are aggressive like that. It's one thing we're talking about they don't feel given to. It's another thing when they're aggressive with us and criticizing us, and also criticizing that which is nearest and dearest to us. You remember even Master told his father, he was very young, and he told his father, no. Yes, it did happen with Master, of course, and with Swamiji, actually. That's why I just got confused. But Master told his father, if you ever criticize my teacher again, who is my Father, who art in heaven, right? He said, you will not see me again. Now, I'm not saying he's ever asking that question that you should walk out on whoever this is. There's always specifics to every situation, and they're very important. And it's also very important how we're being. Are we proselytizing? Are we being judgmental? I mean, this is subtle. So it always takes a little more knowing to answer the questions as fully as we might want to. But it's a very difficult situation to have people that we love, that we care about, that we are, in some instances, needing to be near, be critical. So I don't know where on that spectrum this is. Sometimes we have to leave. That's just the truth. You remember when Master did tell Swamiji, that's not your father. Remember he was saying, my father's coming. He said, that's not your father. I mean, even God himself appeared to Master after his mother died. Whoever just brought that up, somebody, I would forget, brought it up, and how sad Master was. But he was immediately visited by Divine Mother, who said, I've come to you in the form of your mother many lifetimes. So God is always telling us these people that we are surrounded with. They don't have to hold any power over us. Now, again, I've heard too many stories to be naive. You're married, you have 3 young children, and your partner, your spouse, is constantly criticizing you. I mean, so you really don't want to leave, or you can't in that moment leave. Then I would say, be chanting Om in your mind as much as you can while that's going on. First of all, try very hard to never create the situation that makes that happen. Don't bring up the topic of your path. Live it, but don't try and talk about it. Because I can't think of one instance, I have one instance of a very dear friend who lives in Southern California who went from being an atheist, she called herself an atheist, to being deeply devoted on this path. But it was not through coercion. I can't think of a single instance where I or anyone I know has ever changed anybody's mind about anything in religion or spirituality through talking, ever. I can't think of it. If they're drawn and they come in and they hear something uplifting, if they come of their own volition, it's different. But to try and convince anybody, no, particularly somebody who's got an argument already prepared. So don't bring it up. If they bring it up as much as you can look at people, you can be talking to people. I used to do it all the time in medicine when I needed help with a diagnosis or a situation. I'd be talking to my patients at the same time I was having a conversation with God. I've done it many, many times. We can do that. Raise your energy, call on Master for help, put your awareness at the point between the eyebrows. Don't lift your eyes, because that's going to be interpreted as sarcasm. Just don't do any of those things, but inwardly, use it as an opportunity to get closer to God. Then that person who has been not just a nemesis, but sometimes painful nemesis, can become your greatest gift, really. I have had personal experience with this. There is a way to use that which feels awful to have us dive deeper and feel closer to God, because we need God right then. So I hope that answers or gives you some possible pathways to go. Do it inwardly, but don't stay there in the room where your guru is being criticized or you're being criticized. You don't need that. So, but if we can't do it and keep our hearts open, we haven't yet succeeded. That's tricky. How can we be around that negativity, not let it in, but let our hearts be open, which is a lot of what we've been talking about. So, yeah.
Okay, and then there's one more question from online. I know it's past 11. Is that okay? You want to keep going?
We'll make this the last question.
Okay. How can I overcome worries and anxiety that stem from my everyday life? How can I seek God's protection and accept what comes my way?
Expect or accept?
Accept.
I think we call that the spiritual path. I mean, the answer. And I'm not being facetious, but anxiety and worry and wishing things could be different. That is how the vast majority of people live. And even those of us on the path who could say that they've never felt anxious or never worried, it's impossible. But I think the way out of there is that constantly, as much as you can remember, constantly coming back to what I assume you know is the truth. If you're here, you're tuned into this, that you draw Master, Swamiji, other teachers that are meaningful to you, keep drawing them closer. And I will say that the course that we did, Secrets of Emotional Healing, was a very, very powerful course. I'm consciously and intentionally saying two varies. I've said this before, I'll say it again. I do not feel that I actually taught the course. We all really felt Swamiji's presence. So if you haven't tuned into that course, you can write to Lakshmi, she can send you a link, or she could even post it maybe right now, because it's one of those courses we did that will be up there forever. Because every day for 31 days, Swamiji addresses a different emotion. That's what made it so powerful, is that we all have these emotions. We've all been anxious at times. We've all been, and of course it's to varying degrees, depressed or angry or felt greedy in a way. Maybe not even materially, but maybe of somebody's attention. Every feeling that Swamiji mentions in there, we could all relate to. And he always has a solution that is spiritually uplifting. Now, we can't always live that because we're humans. We're not going to be able to. But we can always aspire to it. We can always say, next time I get anxious, or I'm going to listen to that talk again. I'm going to at least read the secret of emotional healing. The secret for overcoming anxiety is, Swamiji says it may be 2 lines. It's a very useful doesn't even say it. It's an inspired work. And just, I don't know why, but more than ever, I felt that Swamiji's answers came to all of us. I would say 90% of those classes. So listen to them. They're rich, and they answer this in exactly the way that you would be asking the question, what do I do about anxiety? And if you took the course, go back again. It's very easy, the way they're up on the web, to find that talk for that emotion. And you can read the secret, but listening to the talk is quite powerful. And if even it gives you 30 minutes of feeling that you're lifted up out of that which you feel stuck in, that's good. Because as soon as we're lifted up, we're looking at the whole thing from a different place. Maybe you go back to it, but that's what the path is. It's just adding one building block on top of another, on top of another. Those people who suddenly feel enlightened are rare. But we all keep doing this. We keep coming back. We keep our efforts, our enthusiasm high because we're sincere in this effort. So that's what I would say. All right, friends, thank you all for coming with good questions and being courageous enough to ask them.